All right, we're 3 minutes past the hour. Ian, should we get things
Yeah,
moving?
let's get things moving here. I guess Kenny, I guess everyone, thank you for joining the webinar here. Coming in from the different corners of the states and internationally here. Really appreciate you guys tuning in to our Corporate Transparency Act Navigating the Beneficial Ownership Information Reporting in 2024 webinar here. We hope you guys leave with some valuable information and what's to come and how to remain compliant with the CTA with hopefully a tool like FileForms. But my name's Ian Quinlan. I'm a client specialist here at FileForms. Any inquiries or questions you guys have after this, definitely reach out to me. I'll put my information in the chat here. Would love to talk you through how to navigate this. But Kenny, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure, thanks, Ian. And my name's Kenny Detman. I'm the co-founder and chairman of FileForms. Many of you on this webinar may also know me as the CEO of Easy ERC. I'm a licensed CPA in the state of Florida. My background's in tax advisory and compliance, and for a significant portion of my career, my focus was on cross-border tax planning and reporting. So I have pretty deep expertise working across federal reporting obligations, which the CTA and the BOI are a federal reporting obligation, and more specifically have quite a bit of experience working with reporting obligations to FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, which is the organization within the government that is administering the Corporate Transparency Act. So a quick rundown on what to expect from here. This presentation is going to be very compliance focused. Certainly may not be at the top of everyone's list of what they want to talk about or learn about coming into the end of the new year, coming into the new year. I think that this presentation is going to be both informative, and I think it's possibly going to be quite surprising about how expansive the Corporate Transparency Act is, how many businesses and companies that it's going to affect in 2024. So, first we're going to run down of who we are. We're going to tell you a little bit about FileForms. Then we are going to highlight some of the key reasons that you should care about the Corporate Transparency Act. We'll get into the finer details in terms of the pertinent questions and the definitions that are within the legislation itself. We'll give you an overview of the deadlines and penalties and a bit of a sneak preview. The penalties are very, very steep for non-compliance here. And then we'll talk about how FileForms technology platform can help either you as the business owner or stakeholder or responsible party. And in the case of folks joining us that are in the professional services world, CPAs, attorneys, other types of business advisors, we can talk about how we can help your clients navigate and ensure compliance with the Corporate Transparency Act. So a little bit about us. FileForms is a technology platform. It was specifically designed for the beneficial ownership information reporting regime that's going live in less than 20 days. So as a tax professional and somebody who's been part of various types of new rollouts of government reporting requirements, I can tell you that based on my experience, the federal government and state governments, for that matter, do a very, very poor job at creating awareness and creating tools for companies or individuals to comply with new types of reporting obligations. So when I learned about the Corporate Transparency Act and the fact that this is not going to be a subset of companies that are going to be affected by this, this is going to be a majority of the companies that are affected by the CTA, I knew there had to be a private sector solution for facilitating a seamless filing experience through government portals. So about a year ago, we set out to start developing the technology that now exists and is active on fileforms.com. I am a CPA, as mentioned. Our organization is built up through various CPAs, attorneys, and industry professionals. So the product itself was designed by subject matter experts. We're based in South Florida. We've got hybrid team members across the United States. Ian sitting in New York City. We've got various other members across the various states. And our focus, as mentioned, has been primarily on creating a BOI filing solution, but we are also creating additional service lines surrounding other types of non-tax reporting obligation, primarily for businesses. And we like to complement those DIY services with white glove customer support. And in the case where certain requirements or obligations become more complex and outside the comfort zone of a DIY solution, we also have a team of CPAs and attorneys that can assist with more of a high-touch service offering. There's also a press release that came out several months ago. Feel free to look us up and learn a little bit more about the organization through that press release. Okay, Ian, want to turn it over to you for the poll?
Yeah, please. So thanks, Kenny. We really want to get a sense of our audience and how they're feeling about the Beneficial Ownership Information Report and Corporate Transparency Act. Do you guys, if you could put in the chat here, have you heard of it? Have you never heard of it? Maybe you've heard of it. Are you following this closely? We just really want to get a sense of where people stand in the knowledge of the CTA and BOI, so we can kind of help guide folks here and point out some pertinent information.
All right, we've got a lot of following closely. So a good mix of knowledge around the CTA. So we'll move. Oh, excuse me.
And then sorry, Kenny, I cut you off there. So one other survey we'd just love to take. How'd you find out about today's webinar? We just want to understand if you're coming in through some partners here or through our forms of information.
Great, Ian. And can we transition back? There we go.
There we go.
All right, we're gonna go through a couple of visuals, and we're gonna talk about the essence of the Corporate Transparency Act and what it's really trying to achieve. So, if we just look at the term Corporate Transparency Act itself, relating to a corporation, we're going to learn that this is going to affect corporations, limited liability companies, limited partnerships, various types of corporate vehicles, and transparency. What is the goal here? The goal is for the federal government to create a database so that they can understand which individuals are either legal owners of entities or have what's defined as substantial control over entities. And so if we look at the form itself that's going to be required under the CTA, the beneficial ownership information reporting, beneficial here, conferring benefit relating to rights other than legal title. So the Corporate Transparency Act and the BOI reporting are not just trying to capture your cap table or understand who is the owner of the stock or the membership units of your limited liability company. It's trying to go broader than that. It's trying to understand where do we potentially have individuals who control the companies that are reporting here. And we are also not just looking at direct ownership. We've got a diagram up here showing you a complex holding structure. The Corporate Transparency Act seeks to look through various layers of corporations until they get to a natural person. And so the purpose of establishing this database is for FinCEN to achieve its mission of deterring various types of nefarious activities that are conducted through corporate vehicles. We're talking about money laundering, we're talking about anti-terrorist funding, we're talking about tax evasion. So this is a means to deter bad behavior that's committed through corporate structures. The perhaps unique part about this type of reporting obligation is that it's going to affect somewhere between 95 and 99% of small and medium-sized businesses. In terms of the actual population of companies that are perpetuating these nefarious activities, we're talking about 0.000 something percent. So it's going to affect, almost every single company in the United States, but it's only going to, potentially capture or deter a very, very insignificant percentage of those companies that are being used for purposes that are certainly not condoned by FinCEN. So who is FinCEN? FinCEN is an organization within the United States Treasury. Again, its stated mission is to deter tax evasion, terrorist funding, and money laundering. Most professionals that hear about FinCEN immediately think of foreign bank account reporting. So foreign bank account reporting, FinCEN has a database. There is a self-reporting type of form that individuals in the United States or individuals that are U.S. citizens, when they have bank accounts offshore, they report those to FinCEN. So immediately, professionals out there think, okay, FinCEN, this must be a cross-border obligation. The Corporate Transparency Act is primarily a domestic reporting obligation. It is looking for U.S. companies, and it is also, in some cases, looking for foreign companies that have registered to do business in the United States. But again, this is not a cross-border filing obligation. So why should you care? Virtually all small and medium-sized businesses are going to be affected by the CTA in 2024. If your business is under $5 million in revenue or under 20 full-time employees, it is extremely likely that you're going to need to report a BOI form in 2024. If you're on this forum and you're part of a tax-exempt organization, you may want to drop off. We won't be offended. One of the categories of exempted types of organizations or companies is tax exempt, but we're going to learn a little bit more about those exemptions further in the presentation. The go live date of the Corporate Transparency Act is January 1st, 2024. That's 19 days from today. Do not be alarmed. There is a good amount of time for companies that are pre-existing January 1st, 2024 to come into compliance. They have until the end of 2024 to file. But it is important to start thinking about this and potentially start collecting information and data to comply with these obligations today. And we'll learn a little bit about what that data is and which individuals we potentially need to reach out to collect certain pieces of potentially very sensitive items of data. The penalties are extremely steep here. $500 per day for a late filing. That caps out at $10,000. There are criminal penalties that can be associated with failing to comply with the Corporate Transparency Act. So this is not something to mess around with. FinCEN has a track record of enforcing these penalties across foreign bank account reporting. It is expected that they are not going to be lenient with respect to the Corporate Transparency Act. 32.6 million entities that pre-existed January 1st, 2024 are estimated to have to file a BOI report by the end of 2024. That is more returns or filings than the total amount of business tax returns received by the IRS every year. In addition, you're going to learn a one-time filing obligation. You file a BOI report, you are in theory in compliance until any one piece of information changes on that original filing. And again, we'll talk about what those pieces of information that are being collected are. FinCEN estimates that each year there's going to be 12.9 million additional change of information filings that are required. So just because you file in 2024 does not mean that the reporting ends. You have to be monitoring whether there's any information on your original filing that changes. And if it does change, you're going to learn that you have to file again within 30 days of that change of information event. So I get my Google alerts on the Corporate Transparency Act. I've had those alerts set up for about a year and a half. From the middle of 2020 to the end of 2023, the end of 2022, you'd be lucky to get 1 or 2 articles a week. I can tell you that today my Google alerts are exploding. Every morning, we're talking about 5-10 articles from major publications that are talking about the Corporate Transparency Act, how imminent it is, how important it is, and how expansive it is. So here's a couple of examples of some recent articles covering the act. So the BOI reporting regime boils down to 3 very important questions. We're looking at a company. This is a company level reporting obligation. And first we have to determine, does that company need to file a BOI report or not? That's question number 1. If in fact the company does need to file, it is not an exempt company, then the second question we have to ask are, who are the individuals that we have to identify as part of that filing as the beneficial owners? We're going to learn again that is not just going to be equity owners. We're going to potentially be reporting across the C-suite, even across the board of directors. And then the third question, and this is only applicable if you're reporting companies that were formed after January 1st, 2024, who is the company applicant? The company applicant can be an internal person or it can be an external party that's assisting with the filing or the formation of a company. For the folks here that have companies that they're bringing into the reporting period, they're not going to have to worry about company applicant. So what is a reporting company? The safe assumption is sort of to first assume that you have a reporting company and then think about the potential exemptions. A reporting company is a corporation, limited liability company, any type of vehicle that is established by virtue of filing a document with a Secretary of State or similar organizations. This can include tribal organizations. A few examples: Delaware LLC, a California for-profit corporation. In some cases, general partnerships are required to file documents within the state. So there's, a very wide, net of vehicles that can be captured as domestic reporting companies. We said this is primarily a domestic reporting obligation. However, it does capture foreign companies that are registered to do business in the United States. So if you have a Cayman Limited Partnership that registers in the state of Delaware for securities purposes, it is potentially a reporting company. In fact, it starts out as a reporting company unless it meets one of the various exemptions. There are 23 total exemptions. They are very, very narrow in nature once we really peel back the onion and look at the types of exemptions that exist. We like to boil these down into 6 different categories. The first are companies in highly regulated environments. We're talking about banks, insurance companies, public accounting firms that are registered for Sarbanes-Oxley. These are types of companies that are already so highly regulated and over-reporting to the federal government that there's no need for them to duplicatively report to FinCEN, and they're also at very, very very, very low risk of perpetuating the type of activities that FinCEN is worried about. Certain types of registered or large investment companies, this is going to be relevant in the private equity or venture capital or maybe even family office space. But in order for funds to be exempt, they have to be managed by SEC registered investment advisors. So there are very limited exemptions that exist in the fund world. Tax exempt entities, as mentioned, are also exempt. The one that is talked about the most is this large operating company exemption. If your company has, and it's generally on a standalone basis, it's not necessarily allowing you to consolidate across a group. If a company on a standalone basis has more than 20 full-time employees, a physical presence in the United States, and more than $5 million in gross receipts, it may be exempt under the CTA. This is something that needs to be looked at very closely. There's a very specific definition of what a full-time employee is, and there's very specific rules on looking back and evaluating the $5 million revenue clip. Additionally, subsidiaries of certain types of exempt entities are not required to file BOI. One very important non-exempt subsidiary would be a vehicle that sits under a private investment vehicle. So if you have a private equity fund and it has subsidiaries, they're not blanketly exempt from BOI reporting. And then the last is inactive entities. Inactive does not mean a holding company. Inactive really means an entity that was perhaps established and never used for its intended use and abandoned, or it could potentially be a dormant entity where all of the activity has ceased and it just sort of has yet to be dissolved with the Secretary of State. Coming into 2024, it might be a prudent activity to kind of look across the portfolios of companies within your sphere of influence and see whether there's any inactive or potentially inactive entities. You may want to think about dissolving those entities ahead of these filing deadlines so that you're not required to report a BOI. So once we've crossed the hurdle of do we have a reporting company or not, the next thing we need to determine is, do we have reportable beneficial owners? And it is possible to have a reporting company, but not report any beneficial owners. In most cases, you are going to have beneficial owners. A beneficial owner can be defined either by substantial control, which is a little bit more of a facts and circumstances based test, and also by equity ownership. So the threshold we're looking for is controlling 25% or more of equity ownership. From a substantial control perspective, you're going to be looking across your C-suite. You're going to be looking at a president, potentially a highly influential board of directors. In a restaurant setting, that could be your general manager. It is not a black and white test of what substantial control constitutes. And we're going to show you a diagram that FinCEN has put out on the next slide to help navigate the determination of substantial control. And we're not going to go through this in detail, but if you look on the right side here, you'll see senior officer, you'll see an individual has the authority to appoint or remove a senior officer, important decision makers. As you can see, this is very much more of a facts and circumstances, not a black and white quantitative test to determine who has a substantial control beneficial owner. Company applicant, as we mentioned, this is only applicable to companies that are formed on or after January 1st, 2024. And the company applicant can be somebody within the company. So if a secretary or the owner of the company is the one facilitating the formation and is not using any outside parties, they would be the sole company applicant. If that same individual was leveraging the services of a law firm or a registered agent company to form an entity, then you'd have both an internal and an external company applicant. And the information you're going to find that's reported about the company applicant is very similar to the information reported about the beneficial owners. So what needs to be reported? So we've gotten past the hurdle of, yes, we have a reporting company. We've identified who our beneficial owners are. We'll ignore company applicant for the moment. What do we have to actually provide FinCEN? Well, the information for the companies is pretty light. It's not overly sensitive. So legal name and a DBA or trade name if it exists. The company's physical address. This cannot be a PO box. This cannot be a Regis office. It literally has to be a physical mailbox address of the company. Provide the jurisdiction of formation, as well as the taxpayer identification number or the EIN for a U.S. business. If it is a foreign entity without an EIN, you can substitute the EIN requirement with a foreign TIN. So not overly extensive and or sensitive for the reporting company. But who's going to be upset here? The beneficial owners, your COO, your general manager at the restaurant that you might own, they are going to potentially be a little bit more sensitive than the company itself in terms of what is being collected and reported to FinCEN. So for beneficial owners, the reporting information required is going to be the individual's name, the date of birth, their home address, a copy of their passport or driver's license, and the passport or driver's license number needs to be separately stated on this form. So this is where we're getting into the realm of having to ask for fairly sensitive information from individuals who might say, well, why am I even involved in this reporting obligation? I don't own one share in the company, yet you're asking me for this information, and you're telling me that you're going to report it to the federal government. So this is where things are going to get interesting. Things are going to get complicated. There may be conflict between company and individuals in terms of being able to get the buy-in that this is, in fact, a federally mandated requirement, and the penalties both for the company and, as we're going to learn a little bit later, for the individual can be very punitive. In addition to this information, an individual can actually apply for something called a FinCEN identifier with FinCEN, so that they can use a unique number as their information for the purpose of multiple beneficial ownership information reports. So if you are an individual that's going to be reported across many entities, it may be prudent that after your first filing has been submitted, that you apply for a FinCEN identifier, so that you don't have to duplicatively provide the same information across various other reporting companies. How do you file this? So yes, FinCEN will be providing a platform to allow a self-service submission of the BOI report. We already understand that this is going to enable either a fillable PDF upload, or FinCEN is going to have a direct filing portal where information can be submitted through that portal, but not saved for future use. And we're going to talk about why that might be important, saving data for future use, when we get into the details on change of information filing. In our experience working with FinCEN's portal, it is not a user-friendly experience. FinCEN has also put out a guide for small and medium-sized businesses. That guide is 55 pages long. So this is a lot to ask for your average business owner or manager, to not only read 55 pages of a guide on how to comply here, but also to navigate some clunky technology that's likely going to be deployed. FinCEN is telling us it's going to be available on January 1st, 2024. We have yet to hear anything that would change that estimate. So what's the alternative? The alternative is to use a filing software like FileForms. FileForms is going to give users a TurboTax-like experience for the purpose of preparing and submitting beneficial ownership information reports. It's going to provide step-by-step guidance. There's going to be education at every step along the way. It is highly secure. It is going to enable efficient collection of beneficial owners information, so that if you're the company's administrator, you're, say, the controller of the company, and you've got to collect passports and driver's licenses across 10 different beneficial owners, FileForms allows you to pre-populate a name and an email address and have those beneficial owners discreetly and securely provide their information to the platform, so it can all be accumulated and consolidated towards that filing. The other option, FinCEN is suggesting that they may actually accept paper filings. It is still to be seen as to whether that will actually be allowed. And it also begs the question of what the heck are they going to do with these paper forms? Is somebody going to manually enter them into this database that they're creating? So when do we need to file? Reporting begins January 1st, 2024. However, if you are a company that was formed prior to January 1st, 2024, you have the full year to submit your BOI report. If you are an entity that is formed after January 1st, 2024, what we refer to as newly formed entities, you have 90 days to submit this form to FinCEN. That 90 days applies for entities formed in 2024. It was recently extended from 30 days to 90 days. In 2025, that deadline reverts back to only 30 days. So very, very tight turnaround for forming a company, going out and getting an employee identification number, and then filing with FinCEN, filing a BOI report. So this appears on its face to be a one-time filing obligation. It is not. If you have any one piece of information that changes on the original report, You went out and hired a COO. You fired your general manager. Somebody's passport expired who's a beneficial owner, and their passport number got updated. If any of those types of events happen, address change, name change, there's a new filing required within 30 days of that change of information event. So this means that another form has to be submitted that looks fairly similar to the prior one, but with an adjustment for whatever that change of information is. The fact that FinCEN is only going to allow you to upload fillable PDF files or file through their online system without enabling you to save any of the previous information makes it very impractical to file these change of information filings. So what we set out to do with FileForms is to securely store the original information that you used for your initial BOI report so that it can be reused, albeit slightly modified, for the purpose of a change of information filing. Previously exempt reporting companies, if you were a bank and lost your bank status and therefore you're no longer exempt under the highly regulated exemption, you have 30 days to file from the date you move from exempt to non-exempt status. That's going to be on the more edge case obscure fact pattern. Penalties, again, $500 per day for late filing, up to $10,000. This is on a per entity basis. Willful failure to file a BOI report can transition from civil to criminal. So these requirements are not meant to be taken lightly. And as you'll see on an FAQ in a later slide, this is not necessarily an exposure exclusive to the company. If beneficial owners refuse to comply, they can equally be liable for civil and criminal penalties. So a few updates. We actually just yesterday got a round of new FAQ updates from FinCEN. The major update that happened within the last month was this 30-day obligation moving to a 90-day obligation for newly formed entities. There was also some guidance around this concept of a FinCEN identifier. But really, the more interesting updates that I wanted to share here are some information on the individual who is allowed to file the beneficial ownership information report. So this is a company level obligation. It is the responsibility of the company to file. Obviously, the company needs an individual to represent itself for the purpose of becoming compliant. And so very generally, the FAQs have established that anyone who the reporting company deems authorized to file can, in fact, file the report. So that's a very, very general, very vague definition of who actually has the authority to file this report. And then the other interesting one is how can filers make a change to their information? So how can they submit those change of information filings? And as mentioned, if the BOI e-filing application is used, if you're using FinCEN's portal, a brand new report must be submitted. So you have to start from scratch. The other new update on the penalties and the exposure: can beneficial owners be held liable? Yes. A BO that willfully withholds, does not provide, or provides false information for the purpose of a BOI report can be held liable. FinCEN was not specific on exactly how they would be liable, but rest assured, the liability does not just rest with the company. Will there be evidence of a successful submission? We get asked this question quite often. Well, how are we going to know if we use FileForms whether or not our BOI report was actually filed? FinCEN is planning to provide confirmations, which FileForms will ultimately share with its users, its customers, to ensure that the compliance obligation has been met. And so how can we help? Again, we're trying to provide a TurboTax-like experience. What that means is we're breaking this reporting into discrete, manageable steps. We're providing education along the way. We're facilitating the ease of collecting information by allowing what we define as the company admin, the person that's responsible for the filing obligation, to leverage our technology to request information from other individuals for the purpose of satisfying the BO portion of the reporting. Most importantly, collecting those driver's license and passports. The estimate by FinCEN, the minimum estimate of the amount of time this might take a small and medium-sized business owner, is 3 hours. But FinCEN estimates for certain complex structures, this can take hundreds, if not thousands of hours to ensure compliance across certain types of organizations or structures. So FinCEN aims to make this a much easier, stress-free, and most importantly, an efficient and quick process for our users. We secure data in a very secure way. We don't allow beneficial owners, for example, to be able to see what other beneficial owners have uploaded into the company profiles. So the ability to silo information so that only the company admin has that access to the information, but not the beneficial owners amongst themselves, is very important. We provide expert assistance so that to the extent that you are not comfortable with a DIY filing solution, we do offer a premium product that allows you to have access to an attorney, allows you to receive a legal memorandum or opinion in connection with your filing to give you that extra level of comfort that you have accurately analyzed, do I have a reporting company? Who are my beneficial owners? And who, in fact, is the company applicant if the company was formed after January 1st, 2024. And then, I've emphasized the importance of being able to store the data in FileForms for the purpose of being able to reuse it for a change of information filing. So if you had 10 entities in our platform and they all were tied to the same legal address at Suite 201 and you changed your address to Suite 200, if you use FinCEN's reporting platform, use their e-filing platform, you're starting from scratch across 10 different entities. If you're using FileForms, we already have that information saved from your previous filing. It's as simple as going in, changing one address, and then submitting the change of information filing to FinCEN. So we're really trying to highlight the importance that this is not a one-time filing obligation. It not only requires filing obligations for the change of information filings, but it requires you to make sure that you have systems and processes in place to identify when change of information events happening. It's very easy to forget that you hired a new employee. It's not going to be immediately intuitive to think, oh, do I have to go file a BOI report by virtue of that hire? So we provide tools, monitoring assistance to make sure that you are equipped with those processes and procedures to identify those events and then ultimately make it super simple to file these change of information filings. We have also, as mentioned, been developing other types of service offerings, one of which is the foreign bank account report. So in the first quarter of 2024, we expect to have our second product out there in addition to our flagship BOI products. On our website, we offer a lot of certainly education, but we also offer some free tools. We have what we call a filing wizard on there. This is absolutely free to use. You do not need to set up an account to access this wizard. And basically what this is doing is it's taking you through 4 different questions to establish whether or not you are a reporting company for the purpose of the CTA. And so I would encourage you, if you go to our website, www.fileforms.com, you look at the top right corner, you'll see that we have a free BOI quiz. That quiz is where you can evaluate on your own through our tools whether or not it's a yes or a no in terms of whether you have a reporting company or not. This is absolutely free. If in fact you have a reporting company, it's actually free to set up an account with us. It's of course a paid service if you want us to file your information for you, but you can absolutely create an account with FileForms for free and use our platform. And ultimately, hopefully, when you learn how user-friendly and how efficient it is, you will in fact want to turn that into a paid product. The ability to not only send push notifications to beneficial owners so that they can provide passports, driver's license, sensitive PI in a secure way is absolutely great for a single entity. When you have multiple entities and there's overlap between beneficial owners, having to repeat that process over and over for additional entities that share beneficial ownership is cumbersome. So what our software also allows you to do is to reuse beneficial owner profiles. So reuse those individuals. It's kind of like a light version of what the FinCEN identifier is trying to accomplish, but it can be done all within our platform, and it can be done in a very secure way. In order to add a beneficial owner that has been used on another entity, that beneficial owner still needs to approve the use of their profile and confirm that they are in fact the beneficial owner for a second or a third entity. So in addition to being a direct to company, a direct to consumer product, we also partner with accountants, CPAs, attorneys' offices, company formation, registered agent firms. We're learning that a lot of CPAs are not going to be providing beneficial ownership information reporting. Why? Because today the AICPA and the state boards of accountancies have not yet approved this as being a non-legal service. And until that happens, the insurers for these accountants and CPAs, their errors and omissions insurers say, no, you cannot provide this service until your board of accountancy approves it as a non-legal service. And if you do, and something goes wrong, well, the insurance, there won't be insurance coverage for any claims against you for providing that type of legal services that stands today. So CPAs, we're learning, are not really interested in doing this, and they're potentially not even allowed to do this. We've talked to a lot of attorneys. As you guys know, attorneys' rates per hours are not cheap. This is not likely something they're going to do on a fixed fee basis. So, you can use an attorney to assist with this process. It is going to be expensive. And then company formation and registered agent firms, some are getting involved in this, but largely confined to their own client base. And they also aren't providing really the same type of user experience and tools that FileForms is. They're providing something that's very similar to what you would experience if you just work with FinCEN directly. So if you are a tax professional or other type of industry professional that wants to refer your clients to FileForms, we have a referral program. The link is on the screen here, and we'll be circulating this deck as well so that you can find our Become a Partner page and hopefully get this filing requirements, get this risk off of your plate and onto ours. We offer 3 different service offerings. If you think that you're an entity that's going to have change of information filings, it makes sense to subscribe to our frequent filer subscription. That is an annual subscription. It allows for unlimited change of information filings. It also includes, of course, the initial filing. It is a discounted price from our basic product. Our basic product is the one-time filing obligation in 2024. If you do need to go back and file a change of information filing, we do offer a discount, a 50% discount on future change of information filings. But this product is probably best suited for very closely held companies that aren't expecting any meaningful change of ownership or change of address, et cetera, over a significant period of time. And then I mentioned our premium product. Our premium product is available to those who are feeling a bit outside their comfort zone and using a DIY product. They want to be able to access the expertise of a legal or tax professional that's going to provide guidance and counsel and ultimately a legal opinion that sits behind this filing. And that is that is available as an upgradable product, and it can be combined with the frequent filer subscription in the event that you want to also enable free change of information filings in the future. So our product's live today. As mentioned, you can go in, you can use the wizard, you can sign up for an account. There's no paywall until you're actually at the point where you're ready to submit. We are offering a promotional code. We are encouraging businesses, companies to do the legwork on this now, so they're not caught at the same time next year trying to chase down individuals for passports and driver's licenses. To encourage you to use our product today, we are offering a full 50% discount off our standard rates. That discount will be available through the end of this month. And after that time, our rates will go up to our standard rates. We are able to collect the information now required to be filed on the BOI report. We are not yet able today to actually complete that submission. We do have to wait until FinCEN opens up their reporting platform in January of 2024. And then we basically give you the option as to when you want us to submit that final form to FinCEN. Okay, so that was a lot of talking on my end. Hopefully that was informative. Hopefully you guys are appreciating how expansive this obligation is going to be across close to 40 million companies in 2024. So we would be happy to certainly assist you with this filing obligation, and we will leave the floor open for any questions. And Ian, maybe you've caught a couple along the way and want to share those.
Yeah, we have a couple in the Q&A section that got some good upvotes. I just want to note any questions that we didn't answer to, please send me an email or give me a call, ian@fileforms.com. Happy to chat through this. But looking at the Q&A section here, so from Carmen, does this apply to single-member LLCs who's operating as a sole proprietor?
It does apply. Single-member LLCs, disregarded entities for U.S. income tax purposes, are absolutely within the scope of reporting companies. A true sole proprietor, where there is not an actual legal entity involved, is not a reporting company.
Good stuff. And then Ravi, is the
Ravi's is the same question. So single-member LLCs, and one quirk about this, guys, is that if you have a single-member LLC that does not have an EIN today, you're not required to have an EIN. You typically would get one for banking purposes. The BOI and the CTA have the unintended consequence of forcing all single-member LLCs to go out and get employee identification numbers.
And then for Esteen, is there any definitive ruling preparing and filing the BOI, not the UPL?
Preparing and filing the BOI, yes, there is a final rule. We know what is going to be required on the form. I'm reading this question as not a UPL question, but yes, there is a definitive ruling that the reporting obligation is going live in 2024, and there's been rounds of comments, and those comments have been closed on the form itself. So it is definitive as to when these forms are going to be required to be filed and what is going to be required to be provided on those forms, what information.
Good stuff. And then Sandra's, my reading of the CTA and the FinCEN's FAQs is that there is no limit on the civil penalty of $500 per day, only a $10,000 cap on the criminal fine.
Our understanding is that the 500 does cap out at 10,000, which is consistent with the way the foreign bank account reports work as well. Once you cross over into the realm of willful and get into the criminal context, then in fact, there's a wide variety of more punitive penalties that can be applied.
All right. And then I think we covered this, but maybe we want to go over the due dates again just for clarity.
If you're coming into 2024 with a company, you have a year to file by the end of the year. If you are forming a company in 2024, you have 90 days to file. If you're forming a company in 2025, you have 30 days to file. And that 90 or 30 days is going to toll from the date of formation or when you're notified.
Yeah, thanks. There was a good one from Johan who was asking more about the private fund world and what happens if I have a private fund with a shareholder redeeming and subscribing monthly to the fund and the shareholders have no participation rights. So a little bit more of a complex scenario. but I think kind of good to address the private
Well, the
investment.
private fund likely would not be exempt unless it's being managed by an SEC registered investment manager. And as far as the shareholder being potentially a BO, this is why the concept of substantial control exists. So this may not be a beneficial owner from an equity perspective, but we'd have to look very closely from a substantial control perspective as to whether or not they are included as a BO. And the rule of thumb here is that when in doubt, assume they're a BO. So, if it's going to be a lot of legwork and there's still some doubt left on whether somebody's a beneficial owner or not, there's no penalty for over disclosing here.
Yep, good stuff. I think another good question here from Jackie. Sorry, I kind of got lost in the mix here. What'd she say? Is there a risk that FinCEN won't be ready for online filing for Jan 1? If so, how will we handle that?
There is a risk. We're kind of watching the calendar here and creeping up to Jan 1. Of course, the earliest that a BOI report could be required is actually the end of March. So if you formed a company on January 1st, 2024, you'd have 90 days from there to file. So that would put you at the end of March. So, is there a risk that it might not be ready by then? Yeah, there's a risk. The government is not always the most adept at building and deploying technology. If it's not available, then all signs would point towards FinCEN adjusting some of the deadlines.
Great. And then last one here, we'll end on, are trusts required to report?
Trusts are not required to report unless that trust has filed a document with a Secretary of State or similar organization. However, trusts are typically used as a mechanism for ownership across other entities. So the entities that the trust owns could potentially, or controls, could be reportable companies, not the trust itself.
Good stuff. I think, unless you see any other ones in there you want to answer, but
Christina asked, most very small businesses will not know to do this. Is there a requirement for the SOS to collect and report this information when a new entity is created? FinCEN has expressed that they will be working with secretaries of states to provide education to both the Secretary of States, and then ask, of course, the Secretary of States to provide that same education to its constituents, to individuals that are part of the company formation or filing process. We haven't really seen any signs of that happening. Again, this is a federal reporting obligation. It is not a state reporting obligation. FinCEN may use state data to try to determine where non-compliance exists, but as far as leveraging the Department of Business or similar organizations across states, we are not hearing anything yet that FinCEN is working alongside them to help small businesses understand that this is in fact a requirement. So Sal asked, he plans to set up a new LLC later this month, but will be delayed, including a delayed effective date for tax purposes. This is not an obligation that looks to the tax status or classification of an entity. When you get notification from a Secretary of State that your company your LLC has been duly established, your 30 days, in this case, if you form it before the end of the year, you will be allowed to actually postpone that deadline until the end of next year. If the LLC is formed after January 1st, 2024, then you would only have 90 days to file.
A good one about estates from Tavanda. If someone has an estate, does the estate have to file a BOI?
No. Similar to the trust, the estate is not established by filing a document with a Secretary of State in most cases. Elaine asked, if an S-Corp closes in 2023, are they still required to file? If we're talking about the S-Corp status terminating, then and the entity continuing to exist into 2024, then there is a filing obligation. If you are liquidating, dissolving that entity in full by the end of this year, then no, there wouldn't be a 2024 filing obligation.
Let's see.
If
A lot of really good questions.
company, will we have to file a new report? Yes. Any change to the composition of your beneficial owners or their information triggers a change of filing obligation. The tax auditor or CMA purchases this product, how many clients can e-file with your platform? And an unlimited number of clients. And we do offer bulk filing, and we are able to actually use bulk import and export features to import your clients into our platform. And then, of course, we will use bulk filing features leveraging FinCEN's API to submit those forms. So there's no limit to the number of clients you can use. Dean's asking if there's been a ruling as to whether CPAs can prepare BOI reports. It's going to be a state-by-state determination. But as of today, there has been, to our knowledge, no state that's come out and said that it's not UPL. And if that doesn't happen, then the E&O insurers are not going to sanction this type of work being conducted by CPAs, EAs, or accountants. I'm not overly familiar with I think I saw a question on a protected LLC, so we may come back to you separately on that one.
What about K? I have several sole member LLCs that are rentals. Must they file?
Absolutely. Unless those rentals have 20 employees or $5 million in revenues each, they all have to file. A director can be called a BO if the power of taking major decisions. So the board of director, the way we interpret the control is if that board of director has a greater than 25% influence on board decisions, including the appointment or removal of officers, then that board of director does constitute a substantial control BO. If a business doesn't have a physical address, it's a great question. We don't know. FinCEN has not provided any guidance. They keep coming back saying PO box is your registered agent address. That is not an acceptable physical address. How about a foreign company that registers in the United States solely for the purpose of being able to sell into that state? There is no guidance from FinCEN on how to address that issue. I wish I could answer that question, but I hope FinCEN comes out with more guidance on how to deal with that situation. It would certainly be a pretty wild notion that this would have the unintended effect of requiring all businesses or all companies to have a physical address. I think we might have captured all of them.
Yeah. And I'll let you wrap up, but I'll just leave with an ending note here, Kenny, as we're conscious about time. Look, we're trying to be kind of your main place to get all information, all of these questions that are coming in, around what information is being reported by FinCEN. We want to be your go-to spot. So please, enroll in our emails, chat with me if you have any questions. We are here to help. We're here to help guide you through this process. We want to be the experts in the room around BOI and CTA. So, it's been a pleasure presenting to you guys. And if there's, if we didn't answer your questions, definitely shoot me a note, give me a call, set up time with me. Happy to chat through it and go through it with you. No problem at all. So look forward to speaking with most of you, hopefully. And Kenny, I'll let you kind of wrap it up.
Yep. I mean, the closing comment for me would be strike while the iron's hot here. I would encourage you to take advantage of these slower times around the holidays or heading into the new year. You can absolutely be proactive and get all of your ducks in a row for this filing obligation. Do not wait until this time next year to try to figure out how you're going to address this. And you may want to have those conversations with the beneficial owners that may not themselves believe that they could possibly be a beneficial owner. I don't own a share in the company. How could I be required to provide my passport or driver's license to FinCEN? Have those conversations. now have them early so that you have buffer time in case there is a situation where you can't actually access information needed to file these reports. So thank you everyone for your time. Definitely encourage you to visit our website, play around with our free tools, our filing wizard. Go ahead and create an account. We look forward to making this as seamless as a process for you and ensuring compliance in 2024 and going forward with potential change of information filing obligations. Take care, everyone.